Good evening, folks. This will be a guide on how I deal with starving Leshaks while getting into their energy neutralizer range. Okay, so here are the stats for the starving Leshak. The main thing you guys need to notice here is the energy neutralizer duration. It's 24 seconds. What does this mean? Between every energy neutralizing cycle of the starving Leshak, it takes 24 seconds before a new one hits. So you will have 24 seconds to recover your capacitor, and you will see why this is important. The second thing that I get from two spreadsheets, but I trust the second one, it's the range for the neutralizer. The spreadsheet I trust most is the below one that says that the range is 30 to 50 kilometers. Personally, I've noticed that they can starve you up to 50 kilometers. The other thing you guys must know is that the Leshaks are extremely squishy. They start with most of their shields and armor damage, and in exotics, they don't have shield or armor at all. They only will have armor in the Firestorm type of filament, which is one of the hardest filaments that you guys should only try after you master the exotics one. So this was the fit I was using while recording this video. As you can see, it is not a stable fit, with both the shoot booster and the micro warp drive active. It gets minus 2.6 gigajoules per second with both of the modules active. But notice now my capacitor regeneration at 10 gigajoules per second when I have both of the modules inactive. It's the same thing that happens when you get completely starved. Both of your modules will stay inactive and you will get that massive amount of regeneration. And this is my solo tier 2 alpha fit, fund your own omega. As you can see, even this fit is not stable with both of the modules active. But once you get starved with this fit too, it gets a capacitor regeneration of 12.5 gigajoules per second. Now, while it is true that I am omega while recording this video, it won't make much of a difference because I don't have really good skills related to capacitor operations as an omega. As you can see, the capacitor system operation, I have only one level more than you can get as an alpha. While the capacitor management, I have the same level an alpha can get with it. So as you can see here on this screenshot, I have the small capacitor control circuit 2 rig offline to simulate, at least closely, how much gigajoules an alpha would get. And you can see here that it is 10 gigajoules per second, which is more than enough to handle the starving Leshaks. So this is the reason why we want around closely to 10 gigajoules per second capacitor recharge rate on our fits, because the micro warp drive activation cost is 34 gigajoules with my current skills, which is the max skill an alpha can get. Now in theory, we would just need around 4 seconds to get the full capacitor we need to activate our micro warp drive. But it handles capacitor recharge rate a bit differently than what we would think it would work like. Once you get completely starved, your capacitor recharge rate actually gets reduced until it gets to around 25 to 30% of your max capacitor quantity, which is the same math I think behind the way passive shield regeneration works. It won't regenerate much until you get to around 25 to 30%, where you reach your maximum shield regeneration. And after you get below that, the regeneration rate starts to lower again. And honestly, I think you can pull it off with even around 7 gigajoules per second, because as you will see in the video, with 10 gigajoules per second is way more than enough to handle the starving Leshaks, because of the long time they take to repeat the neutralizing cycle. Okay, let's get to the Hunger Games. As soon as I enter a starving Leshak room, I use the spiraling technique to approach them with high transversal, so their first attack cycle doesn't damage me as much. Once near enough, like I am now, I start to manually orbit them. As you will see, once my capacitor empties completely, I will spam the micro warp drive button. And as you can see, I recovered enough capacitor to be able to activate the micro warp drive again, so I didn't actually lose too much speed. But even if you do lose speed, you can signature tank the Leshaks attack, as long as you keep a high enough transversal. So getting completely nailed to the point where you can't activate the micro warp drive is not as really dangerous as you might think, as long as you know how to increase your transversal. But as you can see here, with just 10 gigajoules per second, I have more than enough capacitor recharge rate to be able to orbit around indefinitely without having to cut off my micro warp drive. So as you might have noticed, I actually am running a firestorm, because it was really hard for me to get the Starving Leshak spawn to record and make this guy. So I finally got him in a firestorm filament. Now, it doesn't really matter if it's 1, 2, 3 or 4 Starving Leshaks. As soon as you get in range, they will all activate their starving cycles at the same time. So once the massive neutralizer hit, you will have enough time to activate the micro warp drive because of the long times it takes for them to repeat the cycle and the more than enough capacitor recharge rate you have. The only difference in tougher tiers, like tier 3, is that the Tesla drones are actually stronger. So once attempting and getting a Starving Leshak room with drone support, you might want to actually orbit at a longer distance. This way the drones won't damage you as much. As you can see here in the solo tier 2 room, the drones are the ones actually hurting me the most, because I'm not using my shield booster, which I actually can now, but I'm just showing you how well you can tank them, even if you get close. But in the tier 3 room, the Tesla drones deal massive damage. You want to kite them a little farther away with a longer orbiting range. And something you can do in the tier 3 Leshaks room is when you get enough energy to activate your micro warp drive, you can then activate your shield boosters to recover a bit of shield lost, because the next neuting cycle will starve you completely. So that extra capacitor you are recovering, you will lose it all. So just make sure you have enough energy to activate the micro warp drive in between their neutron cycles. But as long as you make sure of this, you can activate your shield boosters. So there we have it, guys. This is how I deal with Starving Leshaks, even in tier 3 rooms. So if you have any doubts, feel free to let me know, and remember to fly safe.